Hi, my name is Jordan Korfman, and this is my social change project reviewing the impacts of substance abuse within a society. To begin, I wanted to go over what this problem is. The social problem of substance abuse is the idea that an individual overindulges in a specific addictive substance. In many cases, these addictions and abuses of the substance often lead to a plethora of negative effects, which are not limited to health problems, mental issues, a complete lack of control over their own life, and very often death. Within a society, substance abuse poses the questions of what and when to regulate, and also how to limit the number of individuals affected by these substances. Whether people have addictions to opioids, stimulants, hallucinogens, cannabis, synthetic drugs, or numerous others, these addictions often lead to severe problems for an individual, those around them, and also just society in general. Next, I wanted to go over how this is a social problem, how it affects a large number of people, and in what different ways. Substance abuse is considered to be a social problem, which means that it has a negative effect within a society and is recognized to be in need of solutions. Substance abuse affects an extremely large number of people, with roughly 16% of Americans being affected starting at the young age of 12. This is also not including the relatives and friends that are also very negatively affected by an individual's substance abuse. Different ways that substance abuse affects people include a plethora of different negative circumstances. For the individual partaking in the abuse, they often get infectious diseases, they can commit suicide, develop heart diseases, have cognitive issues, and many other physical and emotional issues. For those around people with substance abuse, problems often include family issues, instability in relationships, emotional distress, trauma, and many others. Next, I wanted to go over what the causes are and the different contributing factors to substance abuse. Substance abuse disorders can be caused by multiple different reasons, including genetic vulnerability, environmental factors, social factors, mental problems, and individual personality characteristics. These can all be causes for developing a problem with substance abuse. When it comes to genetic factors, genes play a very large influence into one's vulnerability to substance abuse. Studies have found that genes account for 40 to 60% of a person's risk. Those who have substance abuse that run in the family are often more subject to falling into it as well because of this genetic vulnerability. When it comes to environmental and social factors, issues like family conflicts, divorce, trauma, or death can provoke an individual to fall into substance abuse. Living in certain social circumstances or environments like this often lead individuals to be unable to cope with stress and loss in healthy ways, and therefore it leads them into depending on substances, take their pain away, or deal with other issues, and it often becomes a crutch and therefore an addiction. Going over what the consequences of this problem are if it was to continue. For individuals involved, consequences of substance abuse include an increase in mental health problems, organ damage, low self-esteem, the inability to hold a job, often a high risk of overdose, and many others. For different government agencies, substance abuse consequences include an increased percentage of homeless individuals, overpopulation within prisons, increase in the need for social services, and overall public distrust towards the government and its institutions. Though this social problem very clearly creates a lot of negative effects, some major companies and institutions do benefit from the problem. The primary benefactors for substance abuse are industries that deal with pharmaceuticals, rehabilitation centers, and also private prisons. Pharmaceutical companies are often at the center of different opioid crises, and they profit off of overprescriptions and addictions. These companies also often help with medications used for treatment, which therefore leads to them benefiting from that as well, and they gain a large profit from it. Rehabilitation centers also gain money from people suffering with addiction. Though many of these centers are there in order to help the individuals, many institutions have also found to have been exploiting those in need of help just to get more profit off of them and their addiction. Private prisons also benefit from drug-related offenses. This typically happens in areas that have very severe drug laws. These lead to more drug-related arrests and trials, which leads to these prisons being kept full and therefore receiving more money for their needs within these prisons. Next, I wanted to go over who has the ability, the power, and the money to influence public debates about a particular social problem, this one being substance abuse. Some of the main influences that have power over this particular social problem include government organizations, news outlets, insurance companies, and also treatment centers. Government organizations have power and the ability to create laws and also provide funding. With this funding and money that they have, they are able to give grants for treatment that would also better public health in general. News outlets also have power. This is specifically due to the voice that they have and influence that news outlets have in today's society specifically. News outlets could very easily spread awareness and share just how negative substance abuse has become, and therefore help fight against it. These outlets and companies also have money for advertisement and are able to make change through their voice, though this is not often done. Treatment centers also have the power to set the narrative for what recovery and treatment should look like. This provides not only the individual involved, but also those around them, to be aware of what they need and how to help them and get help. These centers have the ability and funds to also push for better insurance policies that would not only pay them, but would also make treatment more accessible for these individuals suffering and as less of a business. Next, I wanted to go over who should do something about the social problem and what should they do. Personally, I think that almost everyone could have a voice and make change in this specific issue. Whether it be government and policymakers, education systems, healthcare, insurance companies, treatment centers, and many others, everybody has a voice and everybody could use it to better this problem. The stigma surrounding substance abuse and receiving help often leads to individuals feeling as though they are unable to overcome their addiction and therefore never will, or they often feel ashamed because of it and therefore will not go receive help. Different companies and government agencies have made substance abuse into a way of obtaining profit and not as a way of actually helping those in need. Though substance abuse is a known social problem, little change is actually being done in order to prevent it and the negative effects that it has within a society. By advocating for change, changing laws and policies, ensuring recovery plans, and overall eliminating the stigma around substance abuse, this social problem could be made significantly better and affect much less of the population, which should be the end goal. The three main takeaways for specific solutions to this problem that I believe would provoke the most change are to begin with treating substance abuse as a public health issue, educate individuals and eliminate the stigma, and also just to talk about it. With beginning to treat substance abuse as a public health issue, substance abuse is treated as a criminal offense, which often leads to people being incarcerated instead of being treated. By limiting the amount of arrests and instead placing funds and grants into recovery and treatment centers, people will be treated as opposed to being punished. With the right treatment and support, more people will be able to overcome their addiction and also be able to reintegrate into society. Through educating individuals and eliminating the stigma, there is often a shame surrounding the idea of substance abuse, which leads to people often being uneducated upon the topic. By inputting information on it into a country's education system, people will be able to learn about what different drugs there are, how they affect people, and also what the best course of recovery is for those involved. Educating people will lead to change and more voices being heard, which will also make it less of a taboo topic and one that is not to be ashamed of. And lastly, just talking about it. In general, people do not often talk about substance abuse problems and are often feeling embarrassed or ashamed too. However, if more people share their stories and if more media outlets allowed for this platform, people will be able to see and connect with other individuals and not feel so alone. This not only helps build a society, but also gives a support system for those who are in need and for those who feel like they have no other option but to turn to drugs to cope with things. With my main takeaways, especially the last one about just talking about it and eliminating the stigma, I also wanted to talk about some of my own personal experience with the issue of substance abuse. When it comes to talking about it, I feel as though it's important to share how this has affected people's lives. My father really greatly struggled with alcoholism and ultimately died of liver failure. And my uncle also greatly struggled with a meth addiction that ultimately led to him having a deadly heart attack at a very early age. Due to these events happening, I feel as though I have been able to see firsthand how substance abuse affects individuals and those around them. I was also able to see how substance abuse begins to affect people at an extremely young age, and along with the shame that comes with it. Neither my uncle or my father felt comfortable talking about their problem or receiving help, and therefore never did before they passed. This led to me believing that if more people talked about it and if the stigma was erased more and there was less judgment around it, more people would get help. Not only have I seen how shame and stigma has limited people, but this has also led me to do my own research and understand how genetics can play such a large role. Many people are unaware that genetic vulnerability can lead to over half of the role in one's abuse problems, and therefore the issue is often generational. Being aware of this, I am able to know for myself how this impacts me and my genetics, and therefore be extremely careful and knowledgeable about different substances. So this, I feel as though, deals with the talking about it issue and also the idea that more people need to be educated on the topic. To conclude, substance abuse is a social problem that greatly affects the world in a very negative fashion. Understanding what social abuse is, how it affects people, and what can be done in order to prevent it is vital, especially when looking at how to move forward within a society. Having an understanding of how companies often use addiction in order to support their business or make profit is also vital when taking action to fight for change. By fighting for and creating a change, the stigma around substance abuse can be abolished, leading to an increase in successful recoveries and also a minimized amount of people impacted in the future. These are my references, and this is the end of my presentation on the social problem of substance abuse and how it can be made better. Thank you so much for listening.